This segment is brought to you by Trinidad and Tobago IVF and Fertility Center. World-class specialists, capabilities and care. Fertility step by step. Your journey to parenthood.
5.5 minutes after 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. So here we go again for another installment of Fertility Step by Step. And once again, we're joined by Dr. Catherine Minto-Bain. She is the Medical Director and Fertility Doctor at the Trinidad and Tobago IVF and Fertility Center. The Trinidad and Tobago IVF and Fertility Center is based right here in Trinidad and Tobago, offering a full range of world-class fertility solutions for couples who are having difficulty conceiving a baby. Dr. Catherine, well, we've been doing this for quite a while now, and we know that some of the things that you're really passionate about, like honesty about success rates, the problem of giving men testosterone and how that is for their fertility. But today, you surprised me a little bit with a new topic that I really hadn't thought about. Today's topic is multiple births. I think most of us think that having twins sounds fantastic. Not one, but two. What could be wrong with that? But from what I understand, twins and multiple births in general are a real concern. Good morning to you, Doc. Good to have you with us once again. Why is that a concern?
Good morning, Fazeer. This is actually a very important issue for fertility doctors. In fact, it's so important that with your help, we're going to tackle this topic over not just one, but two shows starting today. So yes, absolutely. Being pregnant with more than one baby, it's an exciting and very happy event for couples. And in fact, the idea is so attractive that our clinic often gets patients coming to us asking if we can actually help them have twins. And you know, listen, in many cases, multiple pregnancies and twins, the births and the pregnancy go really well and they're lovely. But the sad truth is that just 4 out of 10 twin pregnancies make it safely to the end of the pregnancy. And the mom carrying those babies is 2.5 more times likely to die with a multiple pregnancy than if she were carrying a single baby. So yes, multiple births, they have very real risks for both the baby and the mother.
All right, so you've already piqued my interest, and as you mentioned, this is the first part of a two-part discussion. You mentioned that patients often ask for twins. So what do you tell them then?
Fazeer, you'd be amazed at how many patients come to us specifically asking if we can help them have twins. Interestingly, often the man more than the woman. But for fertility centers, we're supposed to behave really well and work exceptionally hard to minimize the number of multiple pregnancies in our clinics. So we actively work to try and minimize multiple births because of the risks to the mom and the baby. And you know, if patients come to us asking for twins, I will straight out tell them we can't do that for them. I'll explain why twins should never be the objective or considered a good outcome for any fertility treatment, including IVF.
Well, I'm not surprised by what you just said about men being more interested in twins, because I think we had this discussion already. If men could ever be able to take a pill or take a drink that would give them an idea of what labor pain is about or what period pain is about, the world would be a very different place. So it is easy for me. Yeah, we're going to take twins. That kind of thing, not knowing all of the complications associated with it. But let's step back for a minute. Can you define the term multiple pregnancy?
Yeah, so a multiple pregnancy is a pregnancy where you're simply carrying more than one baby at a time. If you're carrying 2, then that's twins. If you're carrying 3 babies, that's triplets. And of course, I think we all know you can carry more than 3 babies at one time, and those are the higher order multiple pregnancies. And I don't know if you remember this, but there was a local case of a high order multiple here in Trinidad and Tobago about, I think it was 2013, not through our clinic, when sex triplets were born to a 28-year-old woman and her partner. And I think that was the first case of sex triplets in the Caribbean, as far as we know. The last time that case was reported on, we found out that 2 of those babies had not survived. Very important. Again, you know, because you know the nature of media, we all get excited when something like this happens and report on it immediately. But how often do we follow up and recognize that, as you just pointed out, 2 would not have survived? So those are the stories we don't often get when we're talking about these. You know, you get all the excitement of everybody turning up with cases of Pampers and whatever else it is, and then don't realize that
what goes on afterwards when the cameras have moved away presents sometimes a very different experience and a very challenging experience for those couples as well. So I'm glad that you pointed out. But how common, because we often try to have our discussion being data driven, how common are multiple pregnancies?
So they're becoming more common. We don't really have statistics in TNT, so let's look at some UK statistics. In the 1980s, just 1 in every 100 births were multiples. Today in the UK, it's 1 in every 65 births in the UK are twins, triplets, or higher order multiples.
That's a significant increase, isn't it? It's almost 1/3 in increase. And as I said, because this is a two-part discussion, maybe we could develop those points a bit further. But how do multiple pregnancies happen?
Yeah, so there are 3 ways that multiple pregnancies occur. Multiple pregnancies, they usually happen when the woman releases more than 1 egg and it gets fertilized, and that's the common form. So the woman releases more than 1 egg, and therefore it's non-identical twins, babies that come from 2 eggs. And women in their 30s and 40s are more likely to do that because they are more likely to release more than 1 egg and get these non-identical twins. And maybe that's a little way that some of the increase has happened in multiple pregnancies, because we're having our babies later. You can also have a multiple birth when you get 1 egg fertilized and then it splits into 2 or more embryos. That's the rarer form, and those are the identical twins. And then, of course, there are fertility clinics. So multiple births happen when you have fertility treatment. And it's a fact that you're more likely to conceive multiple babies if you get pregnant using IVF. But the rates now of multiple pregnancies with IVF have really come down. And that's a huge concern, obviously, for me and my team. I said it just a minute ago, but my strong belief is that fertility doctors should hold themselves the highest standards. In fact, all gynecologists, anyone dabbling around with fertility treatment, the highest standard is avoiding multiple birth, and that's a principle we operate by at our fertility center always.
And is it true that twins run in families?
Yeah, Fazeer, it's true. So you can't prevent all fertility treatments from making twins. Your DNA or your genetics in women can make you more likely to have twins, and they're usually non-identical, and it happens because some people are more prone to releasing more than 1 egg. And a woman is more likely to have twins if non-identical twins run on the mother's side of her family. But fathers can actually carry one gene on to their daughters as well. So it usually comes from the mother's side. It can come from the dad's side. Identical twins don't seem to run in families, interestingly.
And as we're having this discussion about twins, and because of my preoccupation with sport, I'm aware that Cristiano Ronaldo, the footballer, he had twins with a previous partner. He had twins with another partner. Sadly, one of the twins died. But that brings the male side of it as to whether there's any pattern that could develop there. But maybe I'm giving you some research for part 2 of our discussion as to the male involvement in the development of twins. But let's continue our discussion. Getting back to the dangers of multiple births, and we don't want to minimize this at all. Can you explain some of the risks in relation to that?
Yeah, and actually, if we just go back to Ronaldo, the risks are obvious there. One of them is that twins really face a lot of problems, a lot of struggles to survive and get born and live. And Ronaldo, there's no genetics really there that causes multiple pregnancies. That's going to be fertility treatment. And I know that's been speculated about a lot in the press, and we leave him to whatever his family building choices are. In the clinic, I think we put the baby at absolutely the heart of everything we do. You're always thinking of that child that you haven't created yet, strangely. So babies face risks when there's more than one of them growing. Let's talk about twins, but this goes for triplets, and the more babies you have, the more risk there is. So having twins increases the chance that placenta just stops working so well. It's there to feed the baby. And if it's not working well, or it's trying to feed 2 babies, it's going to cause some damage often to the baby's growth and development, all those organs developing. And that scientifically is fetal growth restriction, which is just what it sounds like, problems with growth. And in most cases of twins, The babies are going to be slightly different in size. Sometimes one baby is quite a bit bigger than the other, and that's selective growth restriction. And it can cause a variety of problems, not just the baby being small or big, but, increased risk of stillbirth and death.
And therefore, as we talk about these different challenges, from what I understand, premature birth is also an issue?
Definitely. In fact, most twins and pretty much all triplets are going to be born early, prematurely. 60% of twin pregnancies are born before their time. 3/4 of triplet pregnancies are born very prematurely. And it happens spontaneously often, but sometimes it happens because the doctors have to go ahead and do the C-section. So premature birth is exceptionally common. And because the babies may not be fully developed, it can cause medical problems, and they often need special care. Fazeer, here's an interesting fact as well. If you've given birth early before, even with one baby, you're more likely to give birth early the next time. So when that happens, the OBGYN doctors, they can give treatments to try and either prevent premature birth, like sometimes we can use progesterone injections, pessaries tablets, sometimes a stitch in the cervix. But, and this is a big but, these treatments only work when you're carrying one. If you're carrying multiples, they just don't seem to work.
So is there anything doctors can do to prevent premature birth with twins?
No, not really. We can try and make things a little safer for the babies. So we use a medication called corticosteroids. That is when the babies get to the point where they've got some lungs around 24, 25, 26 weeks. And those corticosteroids are very safe. They help the baby's lungs develop more quickly so that if the baby does come early, as it's likely to, maybe its lungs will work better and it could reduce a bit of the complications associated with premature birth.
And what are the other risks to babies?
Yeah, so Fazeer, when the twins share the placenta, they share the same blood supply, like I said, and sometimes that blood supply becomes unbalanced. One baby receives far too little blood and has low blood pressure, and then the other baby gets far too much blood pressure, much too much blood, and that gives it high blood pressure, and it gets really big, and that's just as dangerous, and that's called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome.
Okay, so as you said, Doc, this is a big topic, and that's why we're having it across two segments, this being part one, and God willing in a couple of weeks, we will continue our discussion. But just to sum up, in the case of multiple birth, the big risk to babies is premature birth. When they're born early, these babies may just not survive. Have I summed it up correctly?
Yeah, 100% right, Fazeer. And when they do survive, they're often going to need a lot of special care. They may suffer with long-term health or disability issues. And mothers of multiple babies, the mother faces many medical issues and risks as well, including a higher risk of miscarriage. And we'll talk more, I think, about the mother's risk. Let's do more of that next time when we do the second part of the show.
Yeah, and so it's very important. Let's hope that people tune in, and we do appreciate the fact that we're getting some generally good feedback with these sessions that we're having, and I know you have a discussion as well on our sister station I-95.5 in relation to this, because information is power, because there's been so many misconceptions and so much speculation, and you know how the rumor mill works, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but everywhere in relation to issues related to births and pregnancies and fertility and the stigmas and so on. And it's good that we're using these opportunities to highlight factual information and data as best as we can. But I want to end today by asking you, why is this such a big issue for fertility doctors and clinics? Why is this so important?
And I think everybody in TNT needs to know this. Fazeer, let me be very straightforward and honest. If a clinic has too many multiple pregnancies, you need to watch out. By the best international standards, it's going to be considered a poorly performing clinic because it will not be producing healthy babies and children. And that results in high levels of risk for both the mom and baby. A good, honest clinic should actually work hard to prevent multiple births happening as a result of any fertility treatment, but most importantly, IVF, where the risk is high. And our multiple birth rate at TT-IVF, they're very low. And that's an indicator that we put the health of our mothers and most importantly, our babies above the commercial success of the clinic.
Very important indeed, and a good way to end part one of our discussion. We didn't entertain any calls this morning because there's so much information that we wanted to ensure that we got in properly for part one of this dialogue. And as you said, we'll elaborate in part two in a couple of weeks' time. Dr. Catherine, thank you very much again for taking the time, and we look forward to hearing more in part two of our discussion next time around. Thanks very much once again.
Thank you, Fazeer. I look forward to next time. Thank you.
Indeed. Very appreciative of these perspectives from Dr. Catherine Minto-Bain. 7:20 in Trinidad and Tobago. That was another edition of Fertility Step by Step.
This segment was brought to you by Trinidad and Tobago IVF and Fertility Center, world-class specialist capabilities and care.